That being said, we're going to kind of dive into this thing, man, because we talked last week about legitimate power. Just to remind you guys, if you did not see the show last week, please go back and take a look at it. So, we're going to continue this conversation to unlock your full potential, a guide to development with the seven types of power. And the goal is to talk about the seven types of power from a leadership perspective and compare it to the family dynamics as well. Because I think, in my opinion, like I said before, I think we have missed the mark from a family perspective on how to understand and exercise leadership as well. Ravonda Jackson, good to see you and welcome to this evening's show. So, as I said before, we talked a lot about legitimate power, but before I kind of dive into that and do a real quick rehash, I want to kind of like go back over real quick, the seven types of power. Remember, the seven types of power fall into two categories. You have formal power and you have personal power. Under formal power, you have legitimate power, coercive power, and reward power. And then under the personal power, you have referent power, you have expert power, informational power, and connection power. And so, what we're going to do is just continue. Now, remember, legitimate power is the power that is assigned to you from a higher authority. Doesn't matter how you feel about it. Don't even matter if you agree with it. It is what it is. Legitimate power is legitimate power, point blank. That's just what it is. So if we look at it from that perspective, that kind of helps us to move into these other types of power that we're going to talk about. MJ, welcome to the show. Good to see you as always. And so, real quick, just to rehash the definition, legitimate power is the power that comes with a formal position or authority. And we had a phenomenal question last week from Miss Brianna. I think her last name was Moore. So I hope she comes back because we're going to continue to answer that question as we start to uncover the rest of the formal power. Now, moving into coercive power. So, real quick, the ability to punish or harm others. I want to give you a more refined definition when it comes down to it. So, coercive power is when someone is in position of power uses the threat of punishment to force subordinates to comply with their demands. Common examples of coercive power includes threats of demotion, bonus cuts, salary cuts, loss of privileges, suspension, and termination. With that being said, gentlemen, the first question I'm going to throw at you is, as a leader or parent, what are some of the potential negative consequences of relying on coercive power?
I'll start with this one. If coercive power is the ability to punish or harm others, if we're talking about leadership and we're talking about being a parent, it can lead to your subordinate or your child being afraid of you instead of actually instead of actually having the understanding that they can come to you when something is going on or they have a question. Um, it is based off of fear and not respect. And that could be a they say it's better to be feared than be respected because fear lasts longer, but I would rather respect you because if I respect you, I can come to you. If I fear you, I'm not going to say nothing to you. I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, and as long as you don't say anything to me, then I feel like I am okay.
I like it. Gentlemen.
I think some of the potential negative consequences of relying on coercive power is um, the inability to be trusted. I
Hmm.
think that I remember in the military when we had those leaders, and I guarantee you, I was one at some point, to where I just everything was about just the stripes on my collar. You're gonna do what I say do, regardless. I didn't always take the time to explain. I didn't have to explain everything, but sometimes things do need to be explained because it can just help everything overall. And if they have a better understanding of why they're doing something, it may, and then part of that process is the being always teaching. You know what I mean? We're always in teaching mode as a non-commissioned officer and a leader and stuff like this. But like I said, it affects sometimes it can affect your ability to be trusted because you're doing things just based off of your rank that may or may not be right. It may not necessarily be okay, or may not even be what's best for the unit. But people will still do those things just because they have that power. You know what I mean? And, with that inability to be trusted, I think sometimes it's harder for people to really do or respect what you have to say, because I don't trust you and you're beating me down. It's like, why should I trust anything you say, anything you do? And I know, or I may not think that you have my best interest at hand. So
Mm.
I think that that can be very damaging to a subordinate when you don't think that the person above you have your best interest at hand, even as a child.
I like that.
I'd like to jump in.
I think. Oh, my
Go
bad. Go
ahead,
ahead. My bad. Nah, I was just gonna say. I think when we look at it, and a lot of us look at it from a military perspective, because there's a lot of military in the chat and on this panel. I remember a sergeant major told me when I was a corporal. He told me that in Article 15 should be, or in in or chapter should be the last resort. Remember that your 4856 is a tool, not a punishment. And the same thing with, you know, giving out uh, a summary or a company grade. He said you got to learn when to use things as a tool uh, to help better a person or correct an action versus trying to punish a person, because the response you get from that person that you have to punish into submission, you can no longer trust their intent uh, because it's not organic. They don't do it because they trust you and they follow you. He said, but when you learn how to use things as a tool, then you learn how to use it to guide and direct them. And so I think sometimes the purpose behind what we do, it affects the mindset and the relationship between a person with set power and subordinate. Because if I feel like you're punishing me because you can, then my next response is I don't really trust you, and I think that you have bad intentions concerning me. So my motivation level is at an all-time low when it comes to you. But then when I see that you know, you don't jump straight straight to a counseling statement so that you can build a packet, but you're doing it to build me as a soldier, then I trust you and I'm more apt to follow you, and I'm more apt to hear what you're saying so that I can make the necessary changes. So I think you just have to be careful with your driving and your intent. And sometimes the intent is warranted. I know some people say, "Now we gotta get this soldier out." I get it, but have you, like that song made you say, have you tried to build that soldier? Have you retrained? Have you given them the information and the tools to succeed? If not, then what are we doing?
I'd say when you try to lead from a domineering or a controlling angle, the person that you're trying to lead will look at it as you're bullying them at times. So they won't have the same respect like you guys were saying, and or trust. And then what it boils down to is, even if it's within the family structure, parents can make it to where their kids just want to get out the house, just get away from you, and then that relationship is forever splintered. And if you're actually trying to work with somebody or have a relationship with someone and you're tearing them down more than you're building them up, they notice that. Then they tend to steer clear of you. So if you're a parent and you're doing it, they gonna see it. Like getting whoopings or whatever you want to call it, however you grew up, can be abusive in nature, and you don't even have to hit them. But if you're doing something and it has no reasoning behind it to make them productive in whatever they did wrong, if it's not to counter that behavior so that they can do it right, you have no teaching element in it, then it's damaging the person. And I'm sure they're, from experience, they will definitely want to get away from.
Now, so I want to make sure I'm clear because you guys have said a lot of great things, but coercive power is a result of legitimate power. So you can't exercise coercive power without legitimate power. So I'm hearing everything that you guys say, but should not I be able to exercise whatever repercussion based upon what a person's behavior is requesting at that particular point in time? Like, is it not okay for me to punish? Is it not okay for me to, like Gaddy was saying, that Article 15 or 48, 56 or whatever, Roland, like you were saying, them spankings. Is it not okay for me to do that? Like, how can me as a parent or as a leader, when do I understand when to exercise that coercive power?
When that coercive power can lead to a lesson learned and not just I got power and I'm going to do whatever I want to and you can't stop me.
Yeah.
If you are teaching me, then that is different. But if you are just doing it because you have a position, then I'm going to want it to get out from under you because I do not trust you in that position to teach me anything.
And how do you decide that as a child?
That is one of those things that I have always been passionate about, because in a lot of households, the child really does not have an opinion because they ain't paying no bills. It's up to the parent to listen to the child and say, okay, I'm not teaching you this. How can I be better? And not, I'm the mom, I'm the dad because I said so. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
That is up to the parent. It's honestly not, it's up to the child to be able to talk and speak and say, hey, this is hurting me. I don't know what you mean by this. Don't just pull the belt out just because I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? You understand what I'm saying? What did I do wrong? And how do I fix it? Not just I did something wrong, I'm about to whoop you and then I'm taking away all of your electronics, so you're gonna be living in monk mode until I say so. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, because the purpose behind the parent is to teach and raise. You know what I mean? Those are part of the jobs and responsibilities of the parent, which what you're saying is implied that the parent has already taught the child those things. So when that time happens, the child can possibly discern between, what's good parenting and what's not. And that also can play a part in the trust part of that, because if parents if kids don't trust their parents, because every time they do anything they get a whooping, whether they write on the wall or forget to pick up a sock, what I mean, the punishment is always a whooping, what I mean, then children can be walking around on eggshells and stuff like this. So back to Coach's question, I think that some of the things that it is okay to use it, your power, because we have those positions for a reason. But to what Chris was saying, what's the lesson behind the punishment? What's the lesson behind the power? You know what I mean? What's the lesson behind the spanking? What's the lesson behind the discipline that you conduct inside of your home? You know what I mean? And are you explaining, or do you need to explain to your children why, certain things are going on,
As a young parent, I always ask myself this main question, and that is, what is the goal? What am I trying to get out of my corrective action? Whether it's taking away the tablet, or whether it's the spanking, or whether it's turning off the TV. My father take the whole door off the hinges. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't got no privacy in his house because you don't pay no bills for no privacy. Hey, real talk.
But if it's a lesson in it,
yeah,
I'll tell you my
and
story
so,
after a while.
but I think where it gets sticky is you always got to ask yourself, what is the goal, right? What is the lesson I want them to learn? Do I want them, because and let's just be honest, some parents just want you to jump when they say jump. And then some parents want you to think about that action before you do it, because I've already taught you, kind of like Uncle Junior brought up. It's already been taught. And now I'm repeating myself because you're repeating this action and you're not learning. What is, does the punishment teach the lesson? Sometimes the spanking don't teach the lesson. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you spank, then you have to talk so you could teach. So they understand why they got in that situation and how to avoid it. But that's life lessons. We get whooped along the way. We waste money trying to make money sometimes, and we learn along the way. That's just a principle of making money. But a lot of times, I think we get so afraid to discipline our children because we didn't like the discipline that was upon us, and versus learning from it and learning how to use it properly, we just shy away from disciplining at all. And that creates a whole different dynamic. Then when that child is older and you can't tell that child nothing, what do? And I get it. We are all learning along the way. And I think that's something that's important. Unlike, some of you grown folk on here with 30-year-old children. I ain't saying no names. But I guess you're learning how to parent a 30-year-old, right? Versus learning how to parent children my age. But the rest of us, we're learning along the way, and it ain't going to look the same for every parent, and it ain't going to feel the same for every child.
See, I think that communication is a key that we don't always use. We think we don't have to explain ourselves because they're children. But if you never explain it to them, you just keep creating a cycle of punishment and abuse that goes from well, that's why my mama did it, my grandma did it. That's how we do it. We just whoop ass. Like, no, you can't just do that. Sometimes you just gotta talk. See, I think when you actually show mercy to a child, show mercy in saying, I have the authority to beat you down. But this is a time where we can sit up and talk and we can learn. We can learn together a better way of getting you to do exactly what to change this behavior. Because one, you want to know why the behavior is consistent. You want to know why they're doing it. Because if they can't, like someone, I don't know. Well, we're going to talk until you find out why. And when you establish that you can talk about things, like my oldest girl, we got to the point where if she did something wrong and I asked her, she don't lie to me. However bad it is, she ain't about to lie to me. Because, like, okay, either I'm going to save it and get a whooping, or I'm going to do this and we can talk about it. I make it worse when I lie. And she would always do that. And I respected that. Like, okay. And it came to a point where, like, what I'm whooping them kids for? Ain't no point of whooping them, because that's just me being frustrated to the point where I don't feel in control. So now I'm going to put my hands on you to show that I can control you. And that is a terrible point. But that's why you asked at the beginning about negatives. There are negatives and there are positives to having that influence in that style.
I like all these answers, by the way. And Chris, I like what you were saying. And I think Tawami's answer kind of led into a more realistic idea, right? Because let's be completely transparent. Most parents who become parents, right? They don't know how to parent when they first have kids. So the child is learning from a parent who is learning how to parent. And let's just be completely honest, like that parent don't really know what they're doing. So the abuse of coercive power can lead a child to not necessarily respect their parent, especially when they start looking at their friends and see how the other parents exercise that power as well. They may do it in a different way. They may do it in a form of communication. Sit down, let's talk, and I'm going to hold you in the space of conversation until you realize you actually did something wrong. That's not abuse. But then in some aspects, it's forcing a child to think. I think you have to kind of weigh your situation, understand where you are within the scope of parenting, understand what coercive power look like, what's too much, what's not enough, because you have to realize it's a scale. It's a scale of the execution of power. And so if you don't execute enough power for said offense, you run into an issue of the child taking you too lightly. If you exercise too much power for said offense, then I think Lisa Key said it down there as well. You get to the point of abusing the child. So I love your responses, man, because you guys are spot on. There are a number of different things that can result from not necessarily understanding how to use coercive power. And I like the fact that you guys focus on parenting, but I also want to talk about leadership as well, because this happens in the workplace. And so you have to realize that there are some people who are listening to us who may be supervisors, they're dealing with supervisors, so forth and so on. And so I want to make sure that we discuss it from that perspective. But first, I want to make sure I catch the people that I did not address. Nikisha Izzard, welcome to the show. Antoine Lyons, good to see you, brother. Dwayne Richardson, lesson from the living room. Always good to see you, and welcome to the show. Katrina Radford, welcome to the show. Good to see you. So I want to make sure I catch everybody before we continue. Now, let's discuss this from a leadership perspective, a work setting. Like, what are some of the potential negative consequences of relying on coercive power? Like, when does a supervisor understand when to exercise said power or not?
Man, I'm probably the least experienced in this area. As the youngest on the panel, that's just being real. So I'll jump out there and make the mistakes, and y'all clean me up. I think it's very sticky, especially when you're dealing with civilians, right? Because we have a lot of military on here. It looks different, and it's not really fair to talk from a military perspective, because you're given a lot more leniency with coercive power in the military than you are in the civilian world. And so you really have to walk the line as a supervisor, because especially when you're dealing in a private sector, because if I own a company and you're a toxic leader, you're affecting my bottom line, you know. So the effects come from multiple directions. If you produce poor performance from your employees, then you're messing with the overall bottom line and the security of everybody's job, really, at this point. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's more than just what are the effects from the individual person, because I think we understand the relationship and the psyche point of view, but now you also got to deal with the consequences that may not happen right away, but after it builds up, and those employees now begin to perform different, or they begin to complain more, and they begin to lose the motivation and drive behind what they do. Now you have to deal with them, and you have to deal with those that are above you. You know, so I think it's kind of this one is a little bit more. It's a little more tough, because you're dealing outside of just me and this employee.
All right. I will say some negative effects of coercive power in like the workplace. I'll use the military, but also it'll relate to civilians as well. Back in 2001, I went to a place called PODC, right? Coach, remember that? And poor man Dr. Phil remember too, right? That's a place where you go to learn how to be a non-commissioned officer or NCO, the primary leadership development course, right? And one of the things that we learned then was that we had a quote that said, "Motivation is the key. The rest of you will follow me." Right. And one of the things that the negative effects of coercive power in the military and in the workplace is decreased motivation. Like the lack of motivation can come. You know, have you ever been in a unit or a workplace where people are like, I'm just coming to work just to get my check and then I'm going home? You have toxic leadership, or you have leaders who are really, into the negative effects of that coercive power. Like, that stuff, it can be a bad place to go into. I've been in units like that. I've been in workplaces like that. And it's just not a fun environment to walk into every single day. You know what I mean? So I think one of the huge effects of The negative effects of coercive power is just the lack of motivation in your employees, which also can affect the overall morale of the business itself.
Unmute.
Like, here's one: the business closes. Period. There's a saying that says, good employees normally leave because of poor management. You don't lose good employees by doing what you're supposed to do. You lose good employees by abusing the position that you have, trying to get something out of them that you know that they're not capable of. Do this because I said so and I'm above you, and if you don't, I'm gonna write you up or I'm gonna fire you. Now, if I want to learn something, I'm not going to come to you. I don't trust you, because if I even give you a glimpse of not knowing something, then that could mean the end of my professional life at this place. It all goes back to I don't trust my parent, I don't trust my supervisor, I don't trust my manager. It all goes back to that. And if you lose good employees and you keep attempting to replace them with employees that aren't even on their level as far as productivity and knowing the job and doing what they're supposed to do and excelling at it, the business is going to fail. Period. You cannot have, like I said last week, there is no team leader without a team. And if you do not have a good team, they're going to always look at the leader and say, what is the leader not doing to get this team back to where they're supposed to be?
I'm with everything that y'all said, because losing the team, losing the relationship, losing the person is it's more detrimental to do something that is damaging to a person. When if I'm leading and I gotta rule with an iron fist, it speaks to my inability to teach. It speaks to my inability to actually build a relationship and a rapport with whomever I'm dealing with, where they respect me enough to, even if they don't know what they're doing, they ask questions. They want to find out, how can I do this better? Because when you're a leader, if your subordinates don't know, it's because you didn't teach, you didn't show. So it speaks to you, not them. So when you just beat them down constantly without showing them why, without saying, "Hey, why did you do that?" Let's talk about it. Break it down. It damages the person's psyche, in the sense. It's like if you have a dog and you constantly tell the dog, "Shut up, stop barking." That's what the dog's supposed to do. When something come around, something by your fence, you want the dog to bark. But if you constantly tell him not to bark, he don't know when to go into dog mode, and he becomes confused. And it's not the dog's fault; it's the owner's. It's the same way with leadership. It's the when you have bad people that aren't working to their full potential, it's because it wasn't explained. Especially if it's a simplistic job, that's something that the leader does know. It speaks to the leadership.
Can I add something else? I thought about while Roland was speaking. What you can do sometimes with when you lead like that, when you abuse your coercive power, you create the type of subordinate. Sometimes, if they stay, sometimes you create the type of subordinate that don't know how to move or operate outside of your direct direction, right? Like, you have to tell them, push this button for them to push the button. They waited on you because they're afraid of the mistake. Then in your absence, they can't carry on the task properly because they can't think. And I don't think we realize that. Like, a lot of leaders don't realize that. When he talks about you being a product of your leadership, your ability to carry on the mission as if your leader was there when they're not there speaks volume to your ability to lead and not just command, or not just constantly attacking or threatening or drop. You get what I'm saying? Like, That is very important. I need to be able to do all my tasks as a supervisor. So I need you to be able to perform your duties without me looking over you. And we can't, you lose that ability sometimes when you make people afraid to move.
I like it. I love it. I agree with everything you guys are saying. I did hear term toxic leadership, and what I've learned over the years is to steer clear of that term toxic leadership because I don't think it actually gives way to what is actually going on. I started using the term immature leadership, and using the term immature leadership just simply means that that person have not necessarily matured into the position that they have been gifted. Again, that position has legitimate power. When they don't necessarily mature into that position, they use coercive power to help you to comply to their authority that has been given to them. So again, they will go with compliance over commitment. Commitment is the evidence of relationship. Compliance is the evidence of rules and regulations. So when you look at it from that perspective, I started talking and started teaching. Let's remove the term toxic leadership from the atmosphere, and let's start looking at mature leaders versus immature leaders, and that can be discovered within the scope of the environment. Again, when you start going back to the stages of team development, right? So forming, storming, norming, performing, and then for project team adjoining, this is how you build effective teams. The leader is supposed to be the one who builds that team. Now, if that leader came in and they were gifted the team, then they have to ease their way in by learning the team members first before they start exercising their rule. I think leadership and parenting is the same because leaders begot leaders. Parents begot parents. So when you look at the leader in an environment, if you find a leader who is not so good or immature in their position, chances are, if you look one level above them, there is a person up there who is not teaching them the things that they're supposed to be doing in said position. Same thing when it comes down to parenting. If there is, in most cases, when you look at how that child was parent, they were probably parented exactly the same way that they were. Or I think Roland, you probably said Roland or Gaddy, you probably said it. Either they were parented this way, or they did not like the way that they were parented, so they're trying to do the exact opposite. So I think that's one of the things to consider. Yes, sir. Oh, he had to say,
Now,
I think he was pointing at Roland.
okay, that was Roland that said that. Okay. So yeah, all great points, and I appreciate you guys bringing that to the table. Some phenomenal comments that are made in the chats as well. Lisa Key said it can lead to being rebellious as a child and recently as a subordinate. So absolutely, um, when you start over exaggerating your authority by exercising punishment for everything, right? The child in turn becomes rebellious. Also, with that being said, the child can withdraw as well. So you'll find kids like that. A lot of times they come home, they go straight to their rooms because they fear coming out of their room and existing in the house because everything they do, they're going to be punished. They're going to be chastised, so forth and so on, as opposed to talk to. So great point, Lisa. Thank you for bringing that to the table. Fear tactics don't foster a real genuine relationship. That's from my brother Dwayne Richardson, Lessons of the Live from the Living Room. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, sir. Thank you for sharing that. Cassandra said that can lead to a disconnecting relationship. It affects the psyche of the subordinate to where they're always second guessing themselves around you. Absolutely. It also stifles the child from being creative and innovative as well because their fear of doing something and actually getting corrected for attempting to do something outside of the norm. So we got to be careful when we do that. Thank you for sharing that. Lisa said leaders could experience regret. I believe this can happen when those in leadership positions don't take the time to get to know those who they're absolutely 100%. That kind of goes back to the stages of team development. She was asking a question to Chris. Are you saying that parents can abuse their authority?
Yes.
Okay, very well. Just like that. MJ.
Yes. No need for an explanation.
There it
Yes.
is.
Parents can abuse their authority
Absolutely.
because I said so, because I'm mama, because I'm dad, because you are under my roof.
Absolutely. Absolutely. MJ says, parents, we could benefit by teaching our children how to respectfully question things. Yes, that is a good point. Because let's be honest, and I think we talked about this before. If you're not teaching them, trust me, the internet is. right? The people at school are teaching them how to, be how can you say, disrespectfully question things. I don't want to say it that way, but yeah, it could be challenging based upon some of the ways that they ask the question. A
But
question is
see,
a question. Go ahead.
here's my thing about that. Most leaders and most parents cannot accept constructive criticism because of the ego that comes behind having said position. You are not always right, mom. You are not always right, dad. You are not always right, manager, supervisor, team leader. You are not the smartest person in the room.
Absolutely.
You know
Depends
what?
on.
I said I wasn't gonna do this tonight. I said I wasn't gonna do this tonight.
Oh,
I'm not
good,
doing
man.
this tonight. Nope.
You're good.
I
You're
know,
doing
right?
good.
Because I'm like,
So
go ahead.
so no, because I'm thinking he says, "Mom, Dad, you're not always the smartest one in the room." If then, so then with that being said, that means I'm no longer your teacher, and you have the right to ignore or disobey what I'm saying because you feel smarter than or you know better. Right?
No, that is not what I am saying. What I am saying is there are stages that comes along with this. As a parent, you're supposed to grow. As a supervisor, as a team leader, as a manager, you're supposed to grow with your team. That means you have to listen to your team. You have to listen to your child. If the way that you are parenting is not helping that child grow, you need to have a sit down with that child and say, what can I do to help you become a better version of you that I know that you are capable of because I see it. If you are a team leader or you are a supervisor, you got to go to your team because your team is the reason why you in that position in the first place.
I don't think we can combine those two just yet. So what age are you talking about? I got to know because my 8-year-old don't know what I can do better to parent him. He could tell me what I'm doing that hurts him, but what I can do to parent him better, he don't know like I don't know because he ain't never had an 8-year-old like I ain't never had an 8-year-old.
But he can
You get what I'm
also
saying?
come to you, yeah, but he can also come to you and say, hey, dad, man, look, listen, I understand that I'm under your roof. I understand that you have a set of rules, but I'm 8. I'm not 4. I can go to the bathroom by myself. I can wipe my own ass. I can write my name. I know things. So can you stop treating me like I'm 4 and treat me like I'm 8? You understand what I'm saying? Not in those exact words, because I know that kids that age really can't articulate themselves in that manner. But as you already stated, they know what hurts. So if they come to you and say, this is hurting me, you can't fire back at them and say, because I said so. Or you can't say, okay, well, you can't. What you can say is, okay, son, I didn't know. I will do better. You understand what I'm saying? You can do
Now
that.
what if you? So let me ask you, and I'm being kind of petty because I got young kids, so I'm hearing you, but I'm also putting myself in there in real time, right? Now my 8-year-old, there's times where he made me think I need to come in the bathroom and watch you do your thing because when you leave, there's piss everywhere but in the toilet. So what are we doing wrong?
You're not teaching.
Do we need to retrain now?
Yeah, you do.
You teach him how to aim.
So no. But that's my point. So then if he says, Dad, I'm 8, I could go to the bathroom by myself. Well, you don't look like it.
That's what you
Peeing
say. You
everywhere.
show him.
So,
You say,
See?
okay, if you could. That's the teaching. That's a teaching lesson. That's
Right.
another lesson.
yeah,
That's the teaching part of it.
absolutely. But that 8-year-old don't become smarter than the parent
Not at all.
at that.
It's not about being smarter than the
See,
parent.
I
That's
think
the
that's
ego side of it
depending on.
that I hear a lot. It's not about being smarter than the parent. It's about the kid recognizing that, hey, I got feelings and I'm feeling this thing, or I don't know this thing. I need you to tell me. I need
See,
you to
that's
tell me
different.
why I need to make my bed up in the morning. I need you to tell me, I need you to show me how to aim at the circle at the bottom of the toilet and not the ring around it. So that way I don't mess nothing up.
The
I
Cheerio.
need
The
you to
Cheerio.
teach me.
Yeah. Now
I
that's
think
Understand
different.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
See,
I
That's
think
different.
think,
I was go ahead, my bad.
Gaddy, I think you getting caught up on that one part.
Smartest in the room.
Right. See, you getting caught up on that and missing what the message in what he's saying, because you have young kids. Like I got a daughter who has a master's degree in psychiatry, a son who's trying to be a paramedic, a daughter who's a realtor, a daughter who's a bank manager, and all this other stuff. So in their fields, maybe they can whatever. And I have to understand that. But as little kids, it's about constantly reassessing the lessons, because
But that's
I'm with you, because they
no, I'm
will
saying
tell
that's why I
you,
asked the question.
right?
What
Because they're
age
gonna
are we
tell you, I
talking
know
about?
what I'm doing. I got it, Dad. Yada yada yada. If you had it, you wouldn't have the brown streaks in your drawers. If you had it, you wouldn't have piss all over the seat. Yeah, I'm kind of crass when it comes to that. But you have to you got to get on that level. Like, okay, you think you have it, but let me talk to you. Let me show you a better way. Because this way isn't working. So let's work. Let's do. Okay, let me see what you do. That's what. Okay, let's do it this way. And that's that way the relationship is built. Like, okay, I know Dad gonna teach me. He ain't about to just beat me and snatch me up and embarrass me, because a lot of parents, they put you on Facebook now, cut your hair. You want to be an old man? I'm gonna cut an old man. That's terrible. That's tearing these kids down psychologically and in front of the world to see. I hate that stuff. But so we got to learn how to build them up where they are, so they can get past those small mistakes where they won't become big mistakes.
This is why I always talk about, when it comes to parenting, you have to be cognizant of when those children hit those gates. Because when it's time for the child to change, the parenting style changes as well, right? Just like you said, at the age of at the age of 8, you can't treat them like it's 4. So you have to understand and assess when that child is growing and learning and maturing, so forth and so on. That's why it's important to teach and assess what is actually being taught. I think that's imperative. But again, it looks the same. Parenting, leader, teach and assess what is being taught, right? Leaders must teach and assess what is being taught. You can't just assume that just because they got the job, they know the job. No, they got hired for the skills, not their ability to execute the job perfectly. When it comes down to children, they don't come out the womb knowing exactly what to do. There's some things they know how to do just by inherent nature, but there are things that you're going to have to teach them, a lot of things. And so just because you do it and you expect them to see you do it and then mimic what you model, it don't always work that way. You're going to have to stand over them sometimes. And unfortunately, it's going to feel like a little micromanagement, but you're going to have to say, well, let me see you do this. Let me see how you do this. Take my daughter in the kitchen and, let me see how you wash dishes. So, no, baby, let's do it like this, right? You got to rinse all the soap off the dish and put it in there, because if not, you're going to make somebody sick.
bleach.
Yeah, well, you put a little bleach in the water sometimes, so ain't nothing wrong with that, right? But it's important to do that. So again, parents need to be cognizant of the gates that the children hit, and then when those children hit that gate, your parenting style must adjust. It can't stay the same, because once that child feel like you're treating them lesser than what they are, and you hear it, especially from boys, I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. I don't need you to walk me to the bus stop. That's them trying to tell you, say, Mom, I just went through a gate. Help me out. Help me out. I don't want the fellas looking at me like I'm soft right now. Help me out. Grow with me. Go with me, right? Because I don't want to kind of give you the Heisman and push you off. So I think that's important. And we talk about this because this is the mark of immaturity. If we don't mature within the position that we're occupying, then we have the ability to damage the people who look up to us, leaders and parents. And that's why we spent so much time talking about legitimate power last week, because that's where this coercive power comes from. It is by way of the position that you hold. Don't matter if you like it, it is what it is. So when the power is exercised, it is generally exercised for a reason. There's a good way to do it, there's a bad way to do it. A lot of times what we have to realize is the best thing you can do is point them back to the vision, especially in a leadership position. Point them back to the vision. The reason why we're here doing the job that we're supposed to be doing is because this is the thing that we're working toward, the overall mission statement of the company. Everybody does their part and you do it well. I am just a organizational manager of talent. That's it. I don't need to get in there and make sure that I do the widgets. I don't have to know everything that you know. I just need to know that you're good at it. And then I just need to look at it from certain times and say, hey, tweak this, tweak that, adjust this, and then let's talk about it afterwards. So now you're feeling like you're part of the process. And now I'm not standing over you like you just got hired yesterday. So all great points. And thank you for that. And then Lisa Key said, this is why mentorship is so imperative. You are developing others, not always in a corrective mindset. Absolutely. With that being said, look at the bottom of your screen. You see that join button. Go ahead and get in the membership program. It is imperative. Trust me. You will love it. You will like it. I guarantee you. We put it together, and trust me, it is something that you will find a lot of value in.
I like what you did there.
You seen that, right? She threw me a
I like what you
softball. Why
did
not? Natasha said, I could not agree more. Management changed with my job, and I was clueless about the expectations of the new team, so we did not work cohesively. Absolutely. That's one of the dangers that you'll run into when you don't do a proper integration into the team as well. Let's see, man, you guys are loading it up here. Allison J, welcome to the show. Lucille Adele, I hope I pronounced your name right. If I didn't, I apologize. Welcome to the show. Alicia Boggs, welcome to the show. Allison said, coercive leadership parenting doesn't build trust or respect. A reason some people leave their jobs and why some children listen to the wrong advice from peers rather than seek wise counsel from their parents. I agree 100%. I think Chris hit the nail on the head. Employees don't leave jobs. They leave bad supervisors or bad leaders. So great point. I'm glad she added that. So let's transition into reward power, right? So reward power is just the opposite. It is the ability to provide benefits or rewards to others. So reward power is more along the line of incentives. It's like when we were in the Army, and if you pass, and I'm so outdated, so Gaddy, don't get on me, right? So if you score 280 or above on the APFT, I give you a 3-day pass, right? So it is the ability to use the reward to incentivize behavior, which I think is an amazing thing, by the way. How can leaders and parents balance the need to incentivize positive behavior with the importance of building intrinsic motivation and a strong sense of values?
This is where I defer to y'all because I do not have children and I haven't been in a supervisor position in quite some time.
Where I say one thing, never make it money when you're talking about having your child do something around the house.
Why not?
Ooh, say more.
Because that's expected. That's your house. You live there. So cleaning your room is what you're supposed to do. It's just like NCOs. We couldn't get a 3-day pass. I don't care if you got a 300.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't getting no 3-day pass because that's what you're supposed to do. See, cleaning up your room is your room. You live in it. You picking up behind yourself. Cutting the grass, you live here. See, now anything outside of chores, outside of the house, when you're doing extra stuff, hey, it's fair game for whatever. But when you're talking about household chores or things that are natural for the family, because I can't say thank you for my kids walking in the house and something on the floor and they picked it up. No, we all live here. We got to live here together. So we got to keep it clean. It's not all on mother, all on father to keep it clean. That's for everyone. Now, when it comes to, like, if I say, hey, I need my car washed, that's my car. And say my son, no, it's my car. So now then it's extra outside of what should be normally expected of them. Now, when you talk about little kids, you got to give them little things to encourage them to where they will start to seek out responsibilities to get those things. But if it's always money, remember, in my generation, most boys go to their mama for money. They don't go to their daddy because their daddy gonna say, no, get out of my face. But they go to their mom. Their mama pinch them off a little something, and then don't tell your daddy, don't tell your sister, or whatever. But when you incentivizing things, make sure it's an incentive where they can not just learn a lesson, but have something of value that's value put to them as well as to whatever they're doing.
Since you kind of took my core point I was gonna make on this, I'm gonna jump right on the back of you. But I'm going to like them young men said about a couple of months ago on Uncle Junior's panel. I'm going to evolve this a little bit with the generations, right? For me. Now, I don't believe in rewarding basic responsibilities, the must do's, right? For older people or for soldiers and stuff like that. I see people get awards just for going to the field. Like, you're not getting an award just because you went to the field. Everybody went to the field. But because you're infantry and he's admin or he's supply, you get an award, and that happens a lot in the military. But I believe sometimes, so first is sometimes when you are teaching your child things habitually to learn, to make it a habit, I think sometimes to have some type of reward or some type of gratification in sight helps them keep it in their mind to build a automatic response. At this time, I got to do this. At this, when I get up, I gotta do this. There's it, and of course I'm gonna teach, like Chris brought up earlier. Of course, I'm gonna teach you why you make your bed, but so that while you're getting into the habit of it, I wanna make it something you can look forward to doing. But as they get older, the money thing, I don't know. I look at it slightly different, right? Not just because I got money and I didn't when I was a kid is different, but because I think that my 12, 13-year-old, I don't think it's too early for me to teach him how to have good money habits. So only place he's going to get money from for me to start teaching him good responsibility with his money if I incentivize certain chores or certain things, like, and I feel you. I don't want him to think life is all about rewards, but I want him to, I'm not going to just give him money just to give him money, but I want him to be able to earn the money, then learn how to use the money properly, how to save it, how not just to spend, put too much money in my daughter's lunch account at school, and the next day she only got $5 from $60, and I'm like, ain't nobody tell you to buy all your friends ice cream. I guess you're gonna be hungry the rest of the month because I ain't putting nothing else in there, But now, how do I teach that? Having that ability to teach that responsibility along the way. So I think it can become a tool, if that makes sense. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't want them to feel entitled for the things they're supposed to do.
No,
but I want to create opportunities to teach.
But like with you got a garden in the back. That's your garden. That ain't the responsibility of the kids. Now, if you got to bring mulch, if you got a toilet and anyway, toilet and all that other stuff, and they helping out, I can say, okay, I'm gonna give y'all this for this. It could be monetary for that because now they are working for a wage, not cleaning my room. Oh, I kept my room clean. That's what you're supposed to do. See, anything that you're supposed to do, no, I'm not paying you for. But if it's anything extra, I could understand that because I always tell, I got 10 grandsons, and I tell them, even the little babies, hey, you always got to have some money on. You always got to have some money in your pocket. And I'm just trying to instill in them to not be broke, not have a broke mindset. And you don't want to steal, you don't want to go and beg, you don't always want your hand out. What are you doing? Because they know if they come to me, can I have? No. What you doing for me? No. Can I? No.
So what, cut the grass fall in that category, sir?
If they want to earn some money, if they say, hey, I want to earn some money, they going out in the garage and getting them lawnmowers and stuff out, I'll pay them for it.
Whose house is it once you die? Is it going to be their house?
No, the girls going to have their own house. Hopefully.
Wait.
I was just saying, I would say, so here's where I was going to go with that. If that's going to be their house when, maybe left to them in the will, then if they're working on the yard and the mulch and the cutting the grass, they're investing in their future and their monetization or money in the future. So that's why I asked, was like, bro, this is going to be your property anyway. You better get out here and put this mulch and stuff. That's kind of where I was going with it.
And you got to be the example. If you putting them to work, you out there showing them, this is the work we do.
And that's why I kind of made that face when Coach asked about grass, is because kind of like what Uncle Junior said is, I think sometimes the reward, and I think a lot of kids don't see this, but sometimes the reward is the lesson you're learning, and learn not just because you're going to inherit this, but also when you go buy your own house. While I'm still living, you got to learn how to take care of what you got. So you're learning how to cut grass, so you ain't getting out there spending $60 every week for somebody else to come cut your grass.
So that's where I'm at with it. Like if you live in this house and we doing something in this house, we doing something in this house.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? The lessons that you learn in this house, then you're more than welcome. We can go in the neighborhood and you can make money cutting other people's grass. You're gonna learn the lesson cutting this grass. That's going to be your reward from that point on. But I'm not incentivizing you to cut the grass in the house that you live in. I'm not incentivizing you to do your chores in the house. I'm not incentivizing doing those things, because the reward is the lesson that you're going to learn that's going to mature you in the realm of learning how to work for a living, right? And again, work looks different. I got that. But it don't matter if you decide to make a living sitting behind a computer, you're still going to have to, unless you just decide to live in an apartment complex, you're still going to have to clean up. You're still going to have to do those things. So for me, I will be completely transparent. I'm not going to give you a reward to motivate you to help out around the house. Sorry. That's what food is. That's what the electricity for your PlayStation is. That's what all that stuff is for, right? Those are your internet. Yeah, those are the Wi-Fi that you be sucking up, right? Those are your incentives right there. As long as you in here, you ain't paying no bills. So at the end of the day, we all pitch in and we do work together. The other side to it is that if you're in the grass, like Roland said, I'm out there with you. And so now I'm showing you tips on how to do it more effectively. And again, if you want to go out there and start a business, I'm gonna help you do it. I go get the trailer. I might even invest in a riding lawnmower, right? We go half on it, right? So I'm just saying that you got to learn how to invest in your own business if that's the direction that you're moving in. So the lessons progress, like we talked about those gates, right? The lessons progress. I think a lot of times, and I think Gaddy, you kind of hit the nail on the head, like based upon how I grew up, I didn't necessarily get an allowance. So we're just gonna, I'm gonna peel mine off on a little $20 a week just because they living in the house. No, not up in here. I don't mean no disrespect. And if that's what you do, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But in this house right here, right, that's just the way I see it. And again, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to how you do it in your house. But again, for me, I think there is a way to do it to where the child doesn't grow up to feel entitled, because at a certain point, when the child leaves the nest, they're gonna come back and they're gonna say that favorite old soul inclusive phrase, "Daddy, can I have?" It's like one sentence, it's like one word that runs all together. Daddy, can I have? Daddy, can I have? Daddy, can I have? Like no, no, and no. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to sit down and talk to me to help me to understand how did you get to this point? And what is your plan to get out of this point? And if you have a plan, I will help you with that plan, help you with the plan, but you're going to have to execute the plan. So again, just my thoughts. Let me see. I think Miss Verlene McCoy was talking about the previous statement where she said when a child feels that they are the parent, it's hard to teach them to question things, to teach them to know the difference between power and concern. I absolutely understand that 100%. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Shout out to the Bold and Driven EP. Always live over there Monday and Tuesday nights. And the producer, Miss Natasha Jones. So you teach the individual how to reward, how the reward can be utilized to grow and invest in self and or pride. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you have to progress them and grow them in that direction. I agree 100%. Young children are excited when they learn to make up their bed, tie their shoes, wash dishes. There is a sense of pride for them. This is a foundational teaching that grows as individuals develop. Agreed. My main man, Dan Scuba Fox. You guys should remember him last week because he was dropping those bombs. Chores are where you are. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to pay you to do no chores around this house. I am no longer in the workforce, but when I was, I requested that the leader speak to me as an adult or a person, no matter what the consequences are. Absolutely. You are a man or woman when you went to work. Trust me, you should feel the same way when you leave work every day. Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa Keys. We all live in this house. We all pitch in and make sure that the house remain in order. And and don't hire maids. I'm with you there. Let's see. Next question on reward power. What are some examples of effective incentive systems that balance extrinsic motivation with intrinsic motivation, and how can these be adapted to different contexts?
Now, you
That
know, with all my degrees, I still went to public school. So when you bring out these
Bruh.
big words, you know,
Bruh.
oh
Just
I'm
when you
good,
thought
though.
Coach liked us,
You
right?
all are crazy.
okay,
Just
fine.
when you thought he liked us, man.
I do like you guys. I like you guys so
Man, I
much. You
just paid for them degrees, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Excelsior. I'm sorry, I didn't say that out loud. No, I do like you guys, and if I'm fair, we actually started answering that already, based upon extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. The extrinsic motivation, what you get externally coming in, the intrinsic motivation is in the inside motivation that makes you more fuller and richer as a person, so forth and so on. And Allison, I'm sorry, I missed your previous statement. You are more than welcome and always welcome to come back and join us every Friday. She says incentivizing can be more than money. I like that statement. If your team feels as though they are part of and understand the bigger picture, they will take pride in the work and keep them motivated. Thank you, Allison, because we did skip over that. We were just talking about the house. So what about the workplace? Right? What about the workplace when it comes on reward? I gave an example with the 280 and above on the APFT 3 day 3 day holiday, right? 3 day pass.
We used to have it to where if we did certain things physically, that if we do it like this physically and we maxed out everything, that we had a certain day where we could do what we want to. We could play sports. We could do we had to do something physical, some physical activity, but we could do that. Or I've been in units where you could come and you could dress down. You can wear certain attire, but you had to do said elements of whatever was asked.
It could be something as simple as a paid day off. You understand what I'm saying? It could be something as simple as that. Or like for where I work, we have this thing where if we can go like a certain amount of time with the least amount of violations, like no speeding and anything like that, as a group, then that group gets the incentive. So it kind of encourages teamwork too, because we all are on different teams. So we all have to communicate like, hey, I need you to slow down. I need you to quit cutting these corners. I need you to deliver the way that is supposed to be delivered and not the way you feel like delivering at this time, because what you do affects everybody. If you do what you're supposed to do, everybody eats. Everybody gets the benefit. You understand what I'm saying? So it could be something as small as that. It doesn't have to necessarily be, if you do this, I'll give you some money. It could be, if you do this, you don't have to come in here when you don't want to one day. You can just say, hey, I want to use this and I want to sit at home and chill. That, to be honest, I am at the point in my life where if I can just sit at home and chill, I'm sitting at home and I'm chilling. If you incentivize me to have an extra day to do that, man, listen.
I like it.
Or somebody can choose to use it.
I'm my bad.
Coach, are you? Did you want to chew on that other question, or did you want to get back to this one?
Yeah, no. We're gonna, from the leader's perspective, we kind of beat the parents up, but what about leaders in the organization?
Okay, so how can leaders balance the need to incentivize positive behavior with the importance of building intrinsic motivation and a strong sense of value? So I wrote down is that you gotta focus on the process at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And that you have to reinforce and make clear what the expectations and goals are. You know, someone had put in there something about grades, maybe incentivizing, maybe giving money or something like that. They incentivize grades monetarily or something like that. So with that being said, you know, I think that that's okay, but what's the lesson behind the money? You know, are you incentivizing to saying, hey, look, if you work hard, just like mommy and daddy does, at the end of the 9 weeks or at the end of the month or whenever like this, there's going to be a monetary reward. Now, what you do with that monetary reward that you get, It ain't monetary reward. It's you work and you get paid. You know what I mean? So you work hard in school, then you get paid, and then you can use that money to teach your kids how to create budgets, how to invest, how to you can teach them about money. So I like it, and I think it's a I'm going back to the family again.
I was
How
just
did
gonna
I
go
don't
there.
even know how I switched all the way back over here. So let me pause and rewind, and then I'll let you go to somebody else, and then I'll come back to it.
It's all right,
I
man. You good?
I jump out there real quick, man, because I was thinking about it. Like we're talking about a lot of what's the term? Extrinsic rewards, but then
Extrinsic.
as my tongue ain't doing it. Extrinsic reward. I know what the word mean, man, because as a Six Sigma certified green and black belt HR guy as I am, you learn
What
a part of
art?
these HR.
No, you said
What
green
you
and
talking?
black belt. What art?
Lean Six
Oh
Sigma.
no, Lean Six Sigma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the things you learn about too is what's called like employee incentives, and it doesn't always have to be time off or stuff like that. If Chris helped me work on a presentation, a small award that goes along with that because of his efforts in helping me meet this deadline can be putting his name on the presentation. So now the bosses, he has visibility with the bosses. That creates a sense of ownership to the work that he does. It creates a different type of motivation. Now when he do his work, he's not doing it from the sense of I'm making this guy rich. He's doing this in the sense of I am making this happen. So it depends on the type of reward you are given, because it will give different type of results. I.e., I work in a place that it's not a reward, but when we get through soldiers and we get them out quick, there's people in another department, because they're not going to see soldiers at the end of the day unless there's soldiers coming in all day. They leave early, but because they've gotten used to this idea of leaving early, now they want to leave. By noon, they're asking, did anybody hear about if we're gonna leave early, or we staying till full time? And I'm like, hey, that's your PTO. Soon you're gonna be taking leave without pay, but go ahead. So I'm always careful. I'm like, we have to be careful with what type of incentives we're giving people, because then they start looking for it and they're working for incentive instead of working to make mission happen.
I like it. I love it.
Sometimes the reward in itself is I did this. I got this done. So if I can do this without anybody harping down my throat or watching over my shoulder and seeing if I'm doing it right, I can literally do anything else I put my mind to. So it's a different kind of motivation when you do something just for the sake of doing it and just for the sake of, I want to see if I can do this. Is that what intrinsic motivation is?
That, my friend, is a great example of intrinsic motivation. However, what I would caution against is that it's actually viewed from a negative perspective, because I want to keep my supervisor off of me, right? But if you do it from
No. That's another side of it. But
right,
as the person doing it,
Mhm.
it's more along the lines of, I did this because my supervisor taught me right. And he doesn't have to come look over my shoulder because he knows that I'm going to do this right because my supervisor taught me right.
right,
You understand what I'm saying?
I do,
That's the positive side of it.
right,
It's not like I don't want this dude talking to me. It's like,
right,
okay, this man sees something in me. This woman sees something in me. She put something in me. She taught me what she knows.
right.
She taught me everything that I needed to know. Let me see if I can implement this. And let me see if I can implement this on my own and maybe ask a handful of questions here and there instead of how do you do this?
Yeah,
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
That's where I was going with it.
No, I'm perfect scenario, right? And I say another way of saying that is that when you are in a good team, you're in a good environment, you have a leader who actually values the team, and you all have great working relationships together, and you feel like you don't, like, literally you've gone through the stages of team development and you don't want to let anybody else on the team down, right? So now it's another thing. I want to make sure I complete this so that I can set the team up for success. So that is an intrinsic motivation, but now we're talking team intrinsic as well. And so in that aspect, even if, say, for example, we're a team, if Gaddy got sick today, we pick up the slack because we refuse to let him fail. So those things are actually be a good point. I seen a phenomenal question. And so I'm sorry, I'm gonna get there. I'm sorry. But going back to what was previously said, I like the fact that Allison brought up the fact that, like, you don't have to reward with monetary gain, or you don't have to reward with days off work, whatever the case may be. I like Gaddy brought in the HR aspect of it, because for, I think, a great motivation, or a great incentive could actually be sending them to some type of like leadership development training, or whatever, that, like something that's going to progress them in their career, something that actually moves them forward, and the company pays for it. That's a fantastic incentive that actually works on behalf of the employee. And what they'll see is that these people actually care about me, because they're trying to help me get to my goals that we talked about when we did my performance measures in the beginning. So all great. I want to make sure I'm grabbing these points. The environment has to set the place for togetherness. Yep, absolutely. So that's kind of like what I touched on just now. Getting something you want, such as leaving work early. Yeah, we touched on that. I offer a lunch or a gift to the team member that performs above and beyond standard. Absolutely. Dan says late call, early release, telework, big boy rules are earned. Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only is he saying that as a supervisor, as an officer in the Army, but he's also saying that from just being a phenomenal a coworker as well, because he fosters a great team. So Michelle says, for instance, as parents, we pick and choose the placement of children, and that causes division. A chore is a chore, so it doesn't matter who does it. I love it. Miss Verlene McCoy said, when I was in the workforce, incentive to me was having my leader come to me and say, Verlene, job well done. So I love this, because an incentive could simply be that the leader actually gives positive affirmations based upon what the employer is actually doing. Ms. Crystal says, I'm a manager in the call center. I'm not able to give those types of incentives. This is something I struggle with. Crystal, I would love to learn the type of incentives that you guys actually employ, because I think I kind of understand some of the struggles there. Question: if there's a constant need to incentivize your team, do you have the right team? Should incentives be needed to get the best work out of the team? Occasionally incentives, yes, but not to be expected. Dig in.
I think, oh man, I'm gonna jump on this one. I think when it comes to incentives, I think we all too often look at what we can buy, what they can get, let them get time off. Sometimes it's just a simple intrinsic nature in us to be proud of the work that we did. Bragging rights.
That's where I was going. Yeah. Bragging rights. That's where I was going.
Like, in the military, when you're doing something, it's like, okay, well, if y'all do this and everybody passes together, that means they got to have some teamwork, and y'all work together. Now it's like them coming together makes me proud, because they did the work. I just had to navigate it. And now they're proud of the work that they did, making sure that everybody passed, everybody met whatever goal. So now it's an internal thing. It's not like, oh, we having a pizza party. Oh, we getting off work early, because that get, like, I know as an NCO, at first I started doing that when I was an instructor. So you paying for pizza for 60 something people, 70, 80 people, that gets expensive. So now you got to say, okay, we need bragging rights. So now we go against other teams. Like, let's see if we can beat them at this. If we can make sure that our team is the best, our team is top notch. So now for family members, your name is your team. This is the Walker household. And we're making sure we do things. Okay, let's school and everything else. We make sure we're good. So bragging rights is a major thing.
So I would say yes. No, I mean, no. So if there's a constant need to incentivize your team, do you have the right team? I would say you probably don't have the right team. I think that there's nothing wrong with rewarding your people for doing hard work. The way you decide to reward them is different. And I do want to say something about a leader real quick. I think sometimes people don't understand sometimes how hard it is to be a leader. When you have 50 people, 100 people up under you, and you're trying to manage everybody's expectations and emotions and feelings and problems and stuff like that, it's hard. You know what I mean? And you don't always get through to everybody. And what may be an incentive for one person may not be an incentive for somebody else. Chris is in them point, and Roland, one of the things that what Roland's talking about, that takes a mind shift or a culture shift in a company. You know what I mean? To where you can have people in, and what y'all was talking about, where people are wanting to work for something that's greater. Maybe the greater good of the company, or something like that. That's a whole mind shift, and that's a whole culture change that good leaders or very effective leaders can do in a workforce. So, but I did want to say that, sometimes we look at leaders as these gods that just have a magic wand that they can wave over everything, and then everybody can just fall into place. And the reality of it is a whole lot that goes into being an effective leader. And then back to this question, should incentives be needed to get the best work out of them? I don't think so. But I also understand that when you're working with a team, there are different types of need for your different types. So maybe for certain people, it may be the trip to wherever to learn more about their skills so they can advance in their company. For some people, they may be more willing to work for a day off. So I think that sometimes as a leader, if you can you're in a company and you can offer alternatives or different ways for people to be incentivized, or more reward system, then I think that's effective. But I don't think it should be needed to get the best out of them if you have the right team. So, and I think occasionally incentives, yes, but not necessarily to be expected. At the end of the day, we go there to do a job. You signed on a dotted line or whatever to go to work from 9 to 5 and do your job, and that's what you're expected to do at the end of the day. And if you don't like it, then you can always go somewhere else and work too.
I want to first start by saying, since we're talking on Allison's question, it's just funny to me how she keep, I don't know anybody's name up there, but commenting to it. Your description is on point. I know exactly who you're talking about just by the way you said what you say. So good job, Allison, first of all. Nah, but I think the way I'm looking at your question, I think it says more about the leader than the team if I have to over incentivize to get you to do a job. I ought to be able to lead you to do the job and do the job right. If I'm leading properly, you'll do it without the incentive, but I am throwing an incentive or a reward because of your efforts after the job is done. And of course, not every time, because like you said, then it become an expected end versus just it's recognition. Because who made the statement about back in, it said in their day, it was a job well done. Sometimes it's the recognition. Yes, Miss Verline. She said when I was in the workforce, and an incentive to me was having my leader come to me and say, "Job well done." And sometimes, it's just getting creative. An incentive sometimes is getting creative with saying, "Hey, job well done." And people just want to be recognized for the job. Even in the military, man, I remember I had too many awards. I couldn't get no more points for awards. And give me an AAM or a COA, I didn't care no more. I had too many. Couldn't get no more points. So but I just wanted you to know and recognize that I'm doing a good job, that I'm working my tail off. So we have to understand the effects. And I think like Uncle was saying, is also with knowing your different team members and knowing what motivates them and what makes them move. And then you adjust, but that's my little take on it.
I am going a different route. I don't think there's any such thing as a bad team. because this is what I understand. And again, you got to kind of listen to it because again, based upon legitimate authority. Again, keep in mind we're talking the seven types of power based upon legitimate authority, which leads to coercive and reward authority. And if I'm the leader and it's my responsibility to build the team, and if there is an individual who is not meeting the parameters of the team, I pull that individual aside and talk to that person about their behavior, so forth and so on. And then I'm only going to do so much talking before I start exercising coercive power. And then eventually get to the point to if I have to exercise coercive power after coercive power because they just want to do their own thing, then they are no longer part of the team. So the manager, the supervisor, whatever, their responsibility is the team. That's it. So the team is never a bad team. It's only the leader. I have to keep stressing that. They fine tune and tweak the team until the team becomes a well operating machine. That's it. And they start caring about one another. They love one another. They develop a relationship with one another, and they look out for one another. Anybody who is a detriment to the team is a detriment to the company. So we pull them aside. It's not like we just kick them aside. We give them opportunity after opportunity. I help them as their leader. I sit down with them and see how I can help them do better, be better, so forth and so on. But at some point, I have to recognize that I am giving 80%. I'm giving 80% of my time to this one person, and 80% of my time is supposed to go to 20% of my team because those are the future leaders within the scope of the team. So when I look at this, I love this question, but again, it's never the team, it's always the leader. And that kind of goes back to the types of power because again, keep in mind when I have to exercise power when the team is functioning just to get them to do, then that goes to the immaturity of the leader. But if the team is not functioning and it's only because of one or two bad apples, then the manager is supposed to go and cut those bad apples out of the team and then help the team do better as we add other people of value to the team so the team can function cohesively. And I think when we look at it from that perspective, I think that kind of makes better sense. So great question, Allison. I really do like it. And I'm glad we kind of went through that because I believe that question within itself kind of helps somebody out. My man Dan Scuba Fox said, understanding using emotional quotient and of what motivates people. So just understanding people, understanding what emotional intelligence is all about, and then understanding how to use those things to motivate people. So I love it. Want to make sure Natasha say, hey man, some people just are not effective at their job. That's my point. And if you're not, you got to go. We love you though. But this may not be the place for you. Teams need the right leader who can recognize their strengths and harness that. Absolutely. Thank you, Natasha, because you're spot on. I believe when a leader comes from a place of poor leadership, they tend to replicate the behavior as a leader. If they wasn't empowered and valued, it will show. Absolutely. Agreed. Leadership is having a meeting with your team and saying and doing things that is important to make the team productive as a team. Facts. There's no bad teams. See, there you go. That's my dude right there. He's also John Maxwell, Uncle Junior. So just so that you know. Listen, this is a bittersweet moment because this is the end.
I don't
So
agree.
say again. What'd you say?
I don't agree.
That's okay. You're allowed to. So so so
It's all good.
yeah, it is.
I do believe that there are some duds out there, and it ain't all on the leader.
Right.
I done had some duds.
Right, but that's what we just said.
You said there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. I do believe that there are some bad teams, even with good leaders.
Well, we're not talking about the Dallas Cowboys, man.
Hey, it is what it is.
Shots.
We about to end the show.
Listen,
I know I ain't gonna have my piece.
No, you get. Listen, this is also bittersweet for me because this signifies the end. So we're just gonna go in a circular formation here, starting with Uncle Junior, and we're just gonna keep on going around. So with that being said, the Unc with the Funk is up first.
Hey, so we've been talking last couple of weeks about the guide to development, and based off everything that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, there has been a lot of different layers to a lot of different types of leadership. I think in order to be an effective leader, you need to do research and you need to understand and learn as much about different types of leadership. The more information that you know about your craft or your skill or position that you be in, the more likely it is for you to be effective in those positions. So I just kind of wanted just to end with that quick, short and sweet and to the point.
Tonight was fun. Tonight was fun, and I also learned a lot, and I got to talk a lot, and I wasn't angry. Tonight was fun. I am still learning. I cannot wait for next week. This was a great exchange of ideas. This was a great exchange of thoughts. Last week was great too. I cannot wait for next week. That's my final thought.
Today, I guess everybody's keeping it short and simple today. But I'm gonna leave with a question I think benefits all of us, right? Me, everybody on this panel, as well as everybody who's still in the workforce. And that is, how can you develop as a leader? I think one of the good things the military has taught me uh, is don't wait till you are in a leadership position to start developing leadership skills and qualities. What certifications can you go get? You know, I know I mentioned Six Sigma from an HR standpoint, but I think anytime you become a leader, there's an organizational aspect to your position now. And so Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma, green and or black belt is excellent to do, but something that you can do to develop yourself as a leader to be more effective in your field and at your craft.
I think an effective leader is merely the top example of what hard work and discipline as a worker can provide for you. So you become a leader because now you have the know-how and you have the discipline. And everyone loves recognition, a pat on the back, a good job, or something. And nobody likes to be overlooked. And what leaders do, leaders as well as parents, they teach their subordinates or their children how to function flawlessly in their absence. And that's what good leaders and good parents do. That's why we're always in the teaching, even though I have grown kids. I'm always in the teaching. I'm teaching finances. I'm teaching everything now. And I'm as I learn, I teach. And that's what leaders do. You know where your limits are. You go seek out education. You go seek out somebody to teach you, and you come back and you teach your subordinates and your children.
I love it. Listen, we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks. We've been talking about formal power and how formal power actually manifests itself in the realm of leadership and in the realm of parenting. And I think when you look at it from a outside perspective, from a wide scope lens, I think you can see there's a lot of similarities when it comes down to having a good understanding of formal power. And so the idea is not just understanding, but learning how to use it effectively, use it so that it not only benefits you, but it benefits everybody around you. That's the concept of power. Power is not for the individual; it's for the people that's within the environment of the individual, and that's one of the main reasons why we went a step beyond to create the membership program because we want to teach you a step-by-step process on how to use these things. We haven't created this one yet, but we will be creating it. But there are others in there right now that you can actually dive into. So again, if you are on YouTube, just look at the base of the screen and you will actually see the join button. And we look forward to seeing you as a part of membership because membership has its privileges. And what you will find is that you get to join us as we start recording those sessions, other sessions as well. And then your questions are actually incorporated into the discussion and answered en route. So your question becomes a part of the developmental process for the entire team. So with that being said, on behalf of these gentlemen, again, we appreciate you. We value you. Miss Verlene McCoy, you trying to make me cry again this week. Not going to happen. I'm a man up this week. Listen, man, she always leave a comment to where it just always catches me, right? She said, we can't stop. It was just getting good. You guys are awesome. See, I'm telling you, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And we talk about it all the time. Every time we go live, it's our desire to give you guys the best of what we have every week. So we appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. And listen, join us again next week as we continue. Now, next week is on personal power. So moving from the immature leader to the mature leader who has a better understanding of how to motivate people and get down to that intrinsic motivation, not just using extrinsic measures. So again, on behalf of these gentlemen, we appreciate you. We value you. Have a great rest of your evening and an even better weekend. Until next week.